What are you in the 1% of? You know, to be in the 1% of anything would suggest that you're in the tippy top in the rarest of buckets. We'll hear some stories today about luck or misfortune, and generally just unusual or uncommon circumstances. And it got me thinking though, what might I be in the 1% of? And since YouTube was top of mind while recording this, I actually looked up what percent of YouTubers have over 100 subscribers. And wouldn't you know it, as it turns out, even that is pretty rare. Apparently YouTube has over 2 billion users, and technically speaking, they all have channels, even if they don't necessarily upload to them. So according to a website like Social Blade or the like, there are over 20 million people with 100 or more subscribers. So around 1% of YouTubers have more than 100 subscribers. And yeah, for sure, this channel is within that 1%, but I was actually surprised to learn that even my personal channel, Brother Goose, falls into this category. And for that, I just want to thank you guys so much, because for sure that would not be the case if it weren't for viewers like you who interact with each other in the comments and help build out the wonderful community that we have. So very grateful for you all. And with that, let's get on to hear the other answers. Story 1. Not as interesting or cool as others, but I'm in the 1% of the population that has no immunity to rubella, even though I've been vaccinated for it several times. Apparently, some people's bodies don't get vaccinations. Fine with everything else, like mumps, measles, etc. It's just the rubella. I've also got type 2 Duane syndrome in my right eye. Duane's being an uncommon eye condition anyway, right eye being least common to have it in type 2, the least common of its type out of the 3 types. Won the Duane's lottery with that one. I'm that way, but with hepatitis B. Every time I get blood work done, they're like, you know, you're not immune to hepatitis B. And I'm like, yes, I've had the full series of shots twice now, but can we do it again, I guess? Yeah, so annoying. I had my first round of MMR vaccine in high school, then again 18 months later when I got sick and hospital blood work came back as me not having it. I had, but they wouldn't listen. Age 19, I had my first child. Same thing during routine blood tests while pregnant. I had to have the MMR again as it showed no immunity to rubella. Had my 4th and final baby last year. I'm 31 now. With my 2nd and 3rd kids, the same thing. By the time my 4th rolled around, I was ready for the fight or trying to convince them I've definitely had my MMR like loads. It was only when I saw a new doctor that he was like, oh yeah, I can totally clear this up for you, and explained it to me. I still had to have it though. I don't even know what rubella is. I know it's included in the UK in the MMR vaccine, and I know what mumps and measles are, but never seen or heard of anyone getting rubella nowadays. Story 2. I fell off a 100-foot cliff and landed headfirst on rocks. Broke my neck and back. Smashed up a lot of my body. Had to travel about a mile to find help immediately after the fall. Doctor said I caused more damage by trying to walk for help, but would have bled out if I stayed where I fell. 15 months later, I am powerlifting and ran a half marathon. Should not be alive, much less be able to walk. When I was 16, I was unlucky enough for both my jack and 2 of my jack stands to fail while I was under my truck, fixing the exhaust. My head was exactly where the gas tank had been before I dropped it out, and my body was crushed between my bench and the truck. My dad walked into the garage and freaked the frick out, yelling, crying, screaming, "Are you okay? Are you alive?" and couldn't hear me saying, I'm good, get me out," over his own sobs. Absolutely convinced I was not alive, but panic screaming until he saw my legs moving. He lifted the truck back up. I walked over to the chair and sat down while he called an ambulance. Walked in the vehicle, walked into the hospital, and walked to the x-ray. Doctor ran in, white-faced, put me in a neck brace and strapped me to a bed, telling me I broke my neck, back, and crushed half of my ribcage. At any moment, I could have moved wrong, and boom, death or paralyzed. Nearly 0 problems healing up, and the worst was the surgery to fix my ribs, and was only out of commission for about 5 months. I got really lucky. You know it's bad when the doctor is panicking. I'm glad you're good though. This stuff is always pretty crazy for me to think about. I'm still relatively young, but not as dumb in my younger years where I would climb dangerous cliff sides, drive a bit too fast maybe, or just generally feel invincible. But when stuff like this happens, where in the blink of an eye, something happens suddenly and has the potential to take you out for good, it's just a reminder of how fragile life actually is. And then I think for a moment that I should really cherish it while I've got it, but then inevitably I just continue wasting it away as a couch potato. And while, yeah, that's mostly an exaggeration, I for sure don't get out and do as adventurous of things as I used to. So maybe this thread and the comments within will inspire us all to really try to live it up and not take things for granted. Story 3. Eyesight. I have 20/10 vision. Turns out only about 1% of people have better than normal 20/20 vision. What is it like to have 20/10 vision? 20/20 vision means that you can see as well at a distance of 20 feet as a person with normal vision sees at a distance of 20 feet. 20/10 vision means that you can see as well at a distance of 20 feet as a person with normal vision sees at a distance of 10 feet. Ted Williams, Hall of Fame baseball player and World War II pilot, told a story about his 20/10 vision. He was landing with his team, and as the plane was circling the runway, he turned to a fellow player and said, "I know that man in the yellow hat." The other player could barely make it to the person in question and said there was no way Ted could see a face from this far away. They get off the plane, and Ted walks up to the man in the yellow hat and shakes his hand. "How many fingers am I holding up?" I also have 20/10 vision, but my eyes are very sensitive to light, so half the time I still wear special glasses to reduce the glare and artificial blue light at night. I wonder if that's a byproduct. I have exceptional eyesight, even in my 40s. Only one out of all my mates who still has no need for glasses. But the glare of sunlight is crippling. If going outside in bright sun, worst on white concrete, without sunglasses, I have to cover my eyes with both hands, looking through little slits between my fingers while squinting. It's not fun, and summer's almost here. You know, in the north, the sensitivity to light comes from the intense reflection of the sun on the pure white blankets of snow, which we have for literally half the year sometimes. I've actually gotten awkward sunglasses or even like goggle tan lines while snowboarding before. Also, not sure how common this is, but I'm also one of those people who sneezes when I walk out into heavy sun rays, or sometimes even looking at a bright screen in the dark. Not really sure how the science of that makes any sense, but what it leads to is sneezing contests, as I call them, where I'll exit a building on a sunny day and just declare amongst my friends or family that the first one to sneeze wins. I guess it's a genetic thing, though, because I only really win half the time. Story 4. I've been in 2 helicopter crashes and 1 plane crash. There's only a small group of people who have survived that many crashes. I'm also not a pilot. Oh, have you considered alerting fellow passengers and crew when you book a flight? That would go over great with the TSA. Plane starts to go down. Oh, I know this one. Follow me, everybody. Person next to them looks scared. First time? You know, at that point, I'd probably follow that guy. Whatever the frick you're doing whilst airborne, stop doing it. Yeah, I'm curious if there are any flights the poster has been on that did not crash. I'm also not a pilot. Explains why you crashed so many times. I'm also not a pilot. Yeah, not anymore. So never go on an aerial ride with you. Got it. Context, please? Military for sure. He's an ejector seat tester. Story 5. Cancer survivor. Think that's 5%? I had it 3 freaking times. We always joke that my dad and the devil have been duking it out since his birth. He survived testicular cancer at 16 as part of the human trials for chemotherapy in the 70s, where he was the only survivor. He described it as them pumping an IV full of death into his arm. He was patient number 13 and the only survivor out of his test group in the Midwest. Then survived what should have been a fatal car crash at 18, survived late-stage bladder cancer at 38, survived melanoma at 50, somehow is still surviving while being on the kidney transplant list since 99, beat another round of skin cancer at 59, and again this past year at 63. He's somehow still alive and kicking. Man just can't be killed. Has he bought a lottery ticket yet? Story 6. I'm one of only 200 deaf pilots in the world, and one of only 4 that are completely known of in the world with commercial and instrument training. I'm also one of the only deaf people who hold both a pilot's license and a commercial driver's license. How do you hear it when other airplanes honk at you to let them pass by? Can you work at commercial airliners? How do you communicate on the radio? This is so cool. My dad works on planes for FedEx and now the military, so I've always respected pilots. Hard work. No, airlines won't touch me with a 10-foot pole. Way too much accommodation and liability involved. I don't personally use the radio. If it's necessary, I'll take a co-pilot along with me to handle the radio. Yeah, I know it's now it's a debunked myth that eating carrots improves eyesight, and that it was derived from World War II, I think, claims that it was a source of enhanced vision to cover the fact that the enhanced technology that the military had developed was actually what attributes to the pilots' better accuracy. But if it were true, I wonder if there'd be an equivalent superfood to help with loss of hearing. My guess would be corn, because they come in ears of corn. There you go, one of my first ever dad jokes. Story 7. I'm sure I'm in the 1% of wedding attendees. I started as a wedding DJ when I was 18. For several years, I was doing 40 to 50 weddings a year. I ended up doing DJ, photo, and video at my business in Vegas. For several years, I was a part of at least 250 weddings a year, sometimes 2 to 3 a day. My record was 7 ceremonies in one day. November 11th, 2011. I retired from weddings at 44 years old, so 26 years in total. I estimate I've been or worked at well over 2,000 wedding ceremonies, probably closer to 25 to 2,600. Interestingly, I've only been a participant in 2 weddings, mine as the groom and my best friend as best man. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I bet this guy has a pretty good understanding of the evolution of dancing over the years. For sure, he's heard Don't Stop Believin', Shout, and Love Shack way too many times, and is now a master of the Cupid Shuffle, Cotton Eye Joe, and the Wobble. At least in the U.S., these are very common. I'd be curious to hear if there's other common themes in other country ceremonies, though. Story 8. I had pancreatic cancer last year. Out of 10,000 patients, they normally find 100 who have another form of this cancer who kill a little slower, like in 2 years instead of months. I was one of the 100. Out of those, normally 15 can have surgery. I was one of them. Out of those 15, some die and some come back to basically normal life. That's about a 0.07% chance in all. I am still one of them. I should not be alive now. Shouldn't have read that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm really happy for you that you're still alive, but my dad just got diagnosed with it, and the operation is in 2 weeks, and I'm scared to lose him. Story 9. Typing on my PC. I can type up to 170 words per minute sometimes, and in the human benchmark site, that's 1%. 170 is more like the top 0.1%. That's insane. And here I thought I was a gamer with 120, 130 on a good day. I used to practice typing in middle school by trying to type out rap lyrics as they came along. If I recall correctly, the last time I was tested, did it for a transcription job, I was at 162 with 2 mistakes. I was then denied the job because of a lack of experience. Sorry, you need at least 7 years of experience for this entry-level typing job. Story 10. Being deaf. Only 0.22%, roughly 600,000 people across all age groups in the U.S. are deaf. More than half are over the age of 65. I've been profoundly deaf since birth, so I'm an even smaller percentage than 0.22%. Pardon my ignorance, but what is the difference between profoundly deaf and just being deaf? Deafness comes in varying degrees of hearing loss. Some only have minimal loss, others might have total hearing loss, but only in one ear. It's a spectrum, you could say. Profoundly deaf is basically 100% hearing loss in both ears. In other words, I can't hear crap. Story 11. If I shake my head in a certain way, I can give myself an origami. Never met anyone who can do that. Wow, that sounds incredibly inconvenient. At an amusement park? Oh, frick, it's happening! What? Please teach me. Roll your head side to side like you're doing a Stevie Wonder impression. Keep doing it for about 20 seconds. Then stop and drop your head back, ideally on a comfortable surface like a pillow. But I don't do it more than once or twice in a row because not only does it stop working, it gives me a terrible headache. Story 12. I am one of only 1,300 board-certified assault nurse examiners for the adult and adolescent population in the world. I think, too, that it's 2%, but I'm a ginger. I'm unsettled by how small that number is. To be fair, there are more of these nurses, meaning nurses who take care of these patients and are qualified to do so. Being board certified just means I took an extra step after I reached a qualifying time to take a test to prove it. I'm actually up for renewal. At the time I first tested, I was one of something like 1,100. Still, even knowing that, there aren't enough assault nurse examiners or forensic nurse examiners overall. Story 13. Only 2% of pregnant women experience 2 miscarriages in a row. Only 1% of women experience 3 miscarriages in a row. I have had 5 miscarriages in a row, and I fully hate any type of statistics now. Statistics used to make me feel safe. Now I just know how easy it is to be on the wrong side of them. How sad. I've had 3 miscarriages in a row, and I totally get not being relieved by any statistic when you're always on the wrong end. I hate hearing that other people have experienced the same feeling. Sending love your way. Story 14. Performing musicians who can play the complete well-tempered clavier. Books 1 and 2. The well-tempered clavier is 2 sets of preludes and fugues in all 24 major and minor keys for keyboard by J.S. Bach, BWV 846 to 893. Jesus, as an accomplished pianist, I cannot. I just cannot. But also I will not. An impressive achievement. I'm not a performance standard pianist, though I do have a music degree, but the well-tempered clavier is never far from reach. It's a great way to get away from things, and I really do enjoy playing J.S. Bach. Story 15. According to my step counter, walking. Not even kidding. I manage a warehouse and walk 10 to 15 miles a day at work. Apparently, this is more than 99.3% of users. Turns out the one thing I'm exceptional at is the one thing almost everyone can do. Yay. One of my first ever jobs actually was pushing carts at a grocery store. 8 hours a day, walking back and forth between the cart corrals and the foyer. Actually quite peaceful though, on an average day. Certainly hectic during busy times, and we actually reached capacity a few times where all the carts were in use within the store, so we were literally running around gathering any single cart left unattended. But for the most part, pretty chill to just walk around outdoors, even in the rain or the snow, and be alone with your thoughts. Of course, walking that much per day was also really great for my health. A lot of the guys I worked with actually were post-retirement age who just like to do it for the mind and body benefits. Story 16. Being 6'1" as a woman. The weather up here is 39 degrees Fahrenheit with a light breeze. My eyes are up here. I'm doing my best. I'm 4'9", and that is a legit problem for me with average-sized ladies. I'm just looking straight ahead. I can't help it that your boobaloobaloobies are in my direct line of sight. I'm not even trying to look, they're just there. And since I'm a girl, when other girls hug me, it's full of hugs where my face gets smashed into their chest. Story 17. Not me, but my dad. He was born with a backwards heart and didn't find out until his heart attack a few years ago, and it actually saved his life. His doctor later told him that after being a doctor for over 30 years, he'd never seen someone with a backwards heart, and that apparently 1% of people on the planet have it. How did it save his life? My guess is that his coronary arteries are also flipped, and therefore the one that was blocked would typically be the one to end your life, the widowmaker. Story 18. A long time ago, when the Wii was the newest console, there was a free downloadable game there, which was Crystal Defenders, a tower defense game inspired by Final Fantasy. Once you finished the campaign, you could compete in the high score for some of the last level. I placed as high as number 17 worldwide, and no other Canadian was above me. Still proud of that one. This reminds me of those phone app quiz games, and I was top 5 in New Zealand for NBA trivia for about 3 days in 2012. Facts may be fictionalized. My claim to fame in the realm of high scores was Guitar Hero 3. My name is Jonas, full combo 100% expert difficulty. Ranked 270th worldwide back in my heyday. Of course, I know it's not as impressive as something like Through the Fire and the Flames or anything, but you gotta love Weezer. Only other game I was really ever ranked was RuneScape, although the threshold for getting on the high scores board for that one is pretty low, because I think it ranked up to like 200,000. And of course, nowadays you can just buy your way to the top. But when I was younger, it was all about strategy and brute force dedication. So many hours spent in the blast furnace in Keldegrim, smelting mithril bolt tips for 99 smithing. Story 19. I suffer from a relatively harmless phenomenon called Aphantasia. I am incapable of conjuring images inside my head. I know what object or thing I'm supposed to think about, but all I see is nothing. When I dream, I know what's happening and what I'm supposed to see, but it's just a whole lot of nothingness. I guess you could say I'm blind in my mind. Apparently, around 1% of the population suffers from this weird condition. Must be nice having a screen in your head that shows anything you can imagine. Story 20. Survival. I fell 25 feet out of a window when I was about 2 years old. I've also been hit by a car that was traveling over 50 miles per hour, 80.4 kilometers an hour. I've had 2 near drownings. I was also held hostage at gunpoint for over 3 hours. All of these things happened before my 14th birthday. I'd like a word with your parents. Sounds like some dangerous people may have wanted that too. Rasputin? Jesus Christ, bro, you okay? Story 21. I'm of the 0.002% of people with osteopoikilosis. This freaked the crap out of me because when I was diagnosed, the first thing the doctor said was, "Wow, I've never seen this in anything but textbooks before." Basically, I have bones growing inside my bones. It's not anything I should be worried about, at least for a while, so that's nice. Does that make the bones stronger? What does that change? My only regret is that I had bonitis. Story 22. I'm naturally ambidextrous. Apparently, that's something only 1% of people naturally are. I can use both right and left hands ably for any task. For example, I often switch which hand I write with based on how I'm sitting. It's worth noting, natural ambidexterity is not the same as learned or acquired ambidexterity. For example, left-handed people often have to use things designed for right-handed people, but otherwise are left-handed. Story 23. I'm diagnosed with visual snow syndrome. Basically, seeing through static. It may not be as rare as I thought, but I am one of very few people to be formally diagnosed. I have experienced visual snow for as long as I can remember. I stopped bringing it up as a child when my doctor didn't take me seriously. I've started bringing it up again after reading an article about it last year. Story 24. Guitar Hero. I was a world-ranked player back when it was more popular and won every tournament I ever attended. Trogdor memorization was fun. Just turn and stare at people while playing it with my back turned. Won a bar tournament head-to-head with the number 2 people, and I turned around and played it without looking at the screen. He should not have let me pick the song. Story 25. My actual name. My last name is one of the rarest in the country, and I am the only person with my name out of the entire population. X-812, is that you? No, it's Fred Smith of Beijing. My name and surname combination is completely unique in the world. There is not currently another human on Earth with the same name and surname as me. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.